Hey, what's going on, everyone? Snowflarkyzemos here today with another Master Duel deck profile. Today I'm bringing my build for Gravekeepers in Master Duel. Gravekeepers, classic Duel Monsters era archetype, and it's a deck that I played for a small bit in the TCG when I borrowed it from a friend and had a good amount of fun with. So I figured I'd use Master Duel as a reason to get my hands on the cards again. And try it out again. Lots of new stuff since the last time I played it, like Necro Valley Throne, their big fusion, and overall, pretty cool deck. Makes a solid stun deck. We know I'm all about those stun cards, baby. And, anything that puts a new spin on it and makes it pretty sweet to play. So with that said, let's start looking at the cards. Starting off with our monsters, I am playing 3 copies of Gravekeeper's Commandant. Gravekeeper's Commandant is the classic. It's 1600 attack, and of course you can discard this card to the graveyard to add a Necro Valley from the deck to your hand. So what's nice about these Gravekeepers, even though 1600 doesn't look like a great attack stat, the ever-present Necro Valley gives all our Gravekeepers 500 attacks, which means, we're going to pretty much always have Necro Valley on this field if we're not just instant scooping. And that means these monsters are going to be notably beefier than they are. So this card's important at 3 because we really need Necro Valley to get things going. It's one of the main win cons of the deck, and subsequent wins can be used to thin out other Necro Valleys or just have a big beat stick on the field. Next big card playing is 3 Gravekeeper Spiritualists. This card is pretty sweet. It's got 1500 attack, which means it'll have 2000 under Necro Valley. And of course, during your main phase, if Necro Valley is on the field, you can fusion summon a spellcaster fusion monster from your extra deck using this card you control and other monsters from your hand or field as fusion material. So that's pretty nice. Like I said, we're going to have Necro Valley on the field quite a bit. So just summoning this guy and having access to another Gravekeeper means we can go into our big boss fusion Gravekeeper's Supernaturalist, which is just an awesome card to have in this deck. So we definitely want to see 3 of this, especially since we can get off multiple fusions. Pretty cool. Next, I'm playing 1 copy of Gravekeeper's Assailant, mostly in here because it's one of my favorite Gravekeepers, and I still find its effect pretty useful. So he's got 1500 attack, which means he'll have 2000 with Necro Valley, and when this card declares an attack while Necro Valley is on the field, you can target a face-up monster your opponent controls and change that target's battle position. Sometimes that comes up with our opponent walling us off with a high attack stat or a high defense stat, but if we're able to switch the battle position, then we can get over it. So just a nice card to have access to. And last for the monsters, I'm playing 1 copy of Gravekeeper's Headman. Gravekeeper's Headman is if this card is summoned, you can target a level 4 Gravekeeper's monster in your graveyard, special summon it in attack or face down defense. And of course, this effect is unaffected by Necro Valley. So what's nice is after I've committed to a Spiritualist and gone to a fusion, if I grab Headman, I can play Headman, summon Spiritualist here, and face up attack, and go into another fusion. Just another way to get more Gravekeeper bodies on board and go for follow-up fusion summons. Makes it a good card to have at 1-up, especially with all these cards being searchable with the Necro Valley Throne field spell. And that's it for the monsters. We are playing a low monster count because this is a stun style deck, and with the Necro Valley, the Gravekeeper Searcher spell, Necro Valley Throne, we can get whichever one we need at the time. Next, going into our spell cards, I am playing 2 copies of Necro Valley. Necro Valley is the big card that makes the deck win. I'm only playing 2 copies though because the card is very easily searchable in this deck, and just having 3 seemed to clog too much, so I've cut it down to 2. Good old Necro Valley says that all Gravekeeper's monsters gain 500 attack and defense, which is pretty nice. Cards in the graveyard cannot be banished, and negate any card effect that would move a card in the graveyard to a different place. Negate any card effect that changes types or attributes in the graveyard as well. So that's pretty cool. A lot of stuff that negates. So many decks use their graveyard as a second hand and a second resource, and being able to deny them a lot of graveyard, a lot of things that move out of the graveyard or special summons from the graveyard is huge and can be very powerful. We're playing 1 Terraforming here as a way to search it in addition to the Commandant because we really want to see this card, and having the Terraforming is perfectly fine to do so. Next, I'm playing 2 copies of Royal Tribute. Maybe a little overkill, but it's pretty handy in Master Duel if you control both Necro Valley. Both player discards any monsters in their hand. We're not playing a lot of monsters, and being able to play this, especially before committing to, say, a card of Demise or a Necro Valley Throne that we're going to search is pretty nice because we can make them discard any hand traps, which is pretty cool. Now that does rely us on opening Necro Valley because they can just Ash Blossom Commandant or, one of our ways to search Necro Valley. But sometimes they don't, and we can hit them with a big punish. It also can be pretty nasty because even though getting rid of a bunch of cards in the graveyard is normally not that great, it certainly is better with Necro Valley on the field, making it so that they can't summon monsters from the graveyard or move them out of the graveyard in any way. So not nearly as punishing. It does lead to a lot of insta-scoops on Master Duel, I found, which is a good enough reason for me to play it. Next, I'm playing one card of Demise. This is a very stun style deck with lots of trap cards, so card of Demise is a nice card. We draw until we have 3 cards in our hand. In exchange, we can't special summon, and our opponent takes no damage after this card resolves. And during the end phase, we have to send our entire hand to the graveyard. Now, that's not a big deal because we have a lot of spells and traps. We can just play them face down in the back row and low monster count. But since we are doing a decent amount of special summoning in this deck with Spiritualist, and, there's a lot more spells than, say, the normal Demise trap card lineup, I do have it just at 1 for now. Next, I'm playing 2 Pots of Duality. While we can special summon with Spiritualist, we're not necessarily doing it every turn, and Pot of Duality is really nice to give us a key tool that we need to set up our turn 1 board. We look at the top 3 cards of our deck, add 1 to our hand, and shuffle the rest back in exchange for not being able to special summon. So just hold off on your Headman and your Spiritualist. You could still have them on the field, which sometimes is good enough. Next, I'm playing 3 Necro Valley Throne. Awesome card. Activate one of these effects. Add a Gravekeeper's monster from your deck to your hand, or immediately after this resolves, normal summon 1 Gravekeeper's monster. We're almost never using that second effect. Always using the first one. Just getting us a Gravekeeper monster, whichever one we want at that time. Spiritualist, Commandant, whichever one we're looking for. Next, I'm playing 3 Pot of Extravagance. Pot of Extravagance is nice because we're not doing a lot with our extra deck. We're mostly just trying to make A's, Gravekeeper Supernaturalist, so most of the extra deck can be sent away here. Pot of Extravagance is pretty nice. At the start of the main phase, banish 3 to 6 random cards from your extra deck face down and draw 1 card for every 3. So we banish 6 and we draw 2, which is pretty nice. That 1 extra card comes in handy. And it's very unlikely that we're going to banish all 3 copies of Gravekeeper Supernaturalist, so it's usually pretty good. And then last, I'm playing 2 copies of Hidden Temples of the Necro Valley, a really powerful card that just outright wins games if you have a good setup. Especially if you can get the fusion. You activate it only if both a Gravekeeper's monster and a Necro Valley are on the field. Neither player can special summon monsters except Gravekeeper's monsters. If either a Gravekeeper's monster or Necro Valley is not on the field, destroy this card. So pretty good. As soon as we have this set up, our opponent can't special summon, and Yu-Gi-Oh is all about special summoning, so oftentimes we can just win the game if they don't have the out. What's important to note in interaction with this is as soon as you drop it, you got to be careful because if Spiritualist is your only monster when you play this, and then next turn you get another Gravekeeper's monster and you try to fusion it away into Supernaturalist, the Gravekeeper's monster will be off the field and Hidden Temples of the Necro Valley will go away. So keep that in mind, usually because once you have this set up, you don't want to lose it no matter what. And unless you got a follow-up one to play, but then that leaves your opponent the ability to chain summons to it. So just something to keep in mind when you're playing this. And that is it for the spell cards. Next, going into our trap cards, we are playing 1 copy of Ring of Destruction. Once Hidden Temple is on the field, and a lot of our floodgates, it's hard for our opponent to summon a lot of monsters. So we don't have to answer too many, we just want to answer key ones on the field. I like Ring of Destruction because it targets a face-up monster, it destroys it, and it burns both players. That burn damage is nice because lowering our opponent's life points quickly is needs because we need to finish them off before they draw the out. So just a good little card to have. 2 Bottomless Trap Hole, a bit of the same. When your opponent normal summons a monster with 1500 or more attack, destroy it, and if you do, banish it. Lost Wind is pretty nice. Target a face-up special summon monster on the field, negate its effect. Also, its original attack is halved. And if a monster is special summoned from your opponent's extra deck, you can set this card. So I like that recursion. The having the stat is pretty important in case they do somehow summon a big monster. And, of course, negating effects is always great. I'm playing 3 copies of Solemn Judgment. Solemn Judgment, we have lots of key cards that are winning us the game, like Necro Valley, Hidden Temples, or other floodgates we're going to get to. We don't want to lose them. Solemn Judgment really makes sure we don't, and negates either a monster summon or a spell or trap card by paying half our life. Great card. We're going to run it at 3. Next, we're playing Imperial Tombs of the Necro Valley. This is Solemn Judgment, but we have to have a Gravekeepers and Necro Valley on the field. So a little more situational than Solemn, which is why I'm only running it at 1. But it's a pretty nice card that can be searched off of Supernaturalist. A good thing to follow up, just another extra copy is nice to have. Next, I'm playing 1 copy of Solemn Strike, just a card that I only have 1 of on this account on Master Duel. When a monster would be special summoned or a monster effect is activated, pay 1,500 life points, negate the summon or activation, and if you do, destroy the card. Very nice. And of course, next are other floodgates. Sometimes we don't have hidden temples ready to go, or we don't have the monsters ready to go. We need these other floodgates to stall us time. So we're going to play 3 Summon Limit. Summon Limit is incredibly powerful in this deck. We're going to basically never summon more than twice, because we're just going to be usually summoning a monster and then maybe fusing. The only thing this has anti-synergy with is Headman into Spiritualist in the fusion. That's 3 summons, but not a big deal, because Summon Limit is powerful enough that we can forego that. So neither player can summon more than 2 times per turn, and that's pretty nice because a lot of decks need more than 2 summons to really get going. So you can flip this on an unsuspecting opponent and put them in a really bad spot, especially if you wait till after they summon 2 monsters. Maybe they're trying to link, maybe they're trying to go into extra deck, and now they no longer can. They just got to sit their monsters on the field, especially if they're not bigger than our 2,000 attack plus Gravekeepers monster, and so that's pretty good. Next, I'm playing 2 copies of Gozen Match. I'd probably pick Rivalry in this slot, but I don't have Rivalry, and I do have Gozen Match, so I'm going with Gozen Match anyway. Gozen Match just says each player can only control 1 attribute of monsters. Most all our monsters are dark. Now, what's important is that Commandant is Earth, so if you have him on the field, you're not going to be able to play Spiritualist or Assailant or anything, but usually Commandant is for getting Necro Valleys into the grave. Everything else is for sitting on the field, so just keep that in mind. You got to be careful when you flip Gozen Match and when you commit to it, but if you got Supernaturalists, Gozen Match is a good card to have, and there are a lot of decks that when they make extra deck monsters need to go into an extra deck monster of a different attribute, and this can really hinder them quite a bit, whereas it doesn't hinder us nearly as much, and cards like this are important so that decks like this can win. And our last card is a copy of Necro Valley Temple. When a Gravekeeper's monster and a Necro Valley are both on the field, monsters your opponent controls lose 500 attack and defense. Real nice to have because that drop on the top of the Necro Valley attack buff, it makes it really hard to out our monsters by battle. And then once per turn during the main phase, if you control no card in your field zone, you can activate 1 Necro Valley from your hand or graveyard. So it can recur destroyed Necro Valleys, which is pretty sweet. And of course, if this card in your possession is destroyed by an opponent's card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can set 1 Necro Valley spell or trap card from your deck except Necro Valley Temple. So that's nice. It can be Necro Valley Throne, it can be Necro Valley, Hidden Temples of Necro Valley, plenty of options there. So even if it gets removed, pretty good card. Makes it a nice one of another searchable card. These Necro Valley cards are all searchable by our fusion, which I'll go in a second. So that's it for the main deck. Now on to the extra. Moving on to the extra deck, the main thing to talk about is our big boss monster, Gravekeepers Supernaturalist. Pretty good card that I'm running 3 of because I want to make sure 1 copy is left after I play a Pot of Extravagance. It's a fusion that requires 2 Gravekeepers monsters, and we of course fusion summon it with Gravekeeper Spiritualist. So it gains attack and defense equal to the combined levels of the materials used for its fusion times 100. Most things are 4 stars, so that's usually an extra 800 attack. And then, of course, Necro Valley will give it 500 attack, meaning this guy is usually at 3,300. If you summon it off of Headman, you're going to get 3,200, but still, that's a nice attack stat to have. And while Necro Valley is on the field, this card and any card in your field zone cannot be destroyed by card effects. So that's why once you get this guy set up with Necro Valley, that's really the best time to play Hidden Temples, because it's a lot harder to remove your Necro Valley and this guy. So Hidden Temples stays alive, which is pretty awesome. And of course, during your main phase, you can activate this effect. During the end phase of the turn, add 1 Gravekeeper's monster or Necro Valley card from the deck to your hand. This effect is key to this deck working because what makes it nice is you set up a turn 1 board, stuns your opponent out for a little bit, but you need a way to generate card advantage or your opponent will draw the out while you just kind of meander. And this card helps us do that. We can add Necro Valley Throne to grab more monsters. Hidden Temples of the Necro Valley if we want to set it up on a follow turn and stop special summoning. Imperial Tombs is nice if we want to have a Solemn on board once we're set up. So that effect is really crucial and makes it work Well, the rest of the extra deck, not too much to talk about. I've just filled it with good rank 4 XZs because most of these cards are level 4. Now I know that doesn't work with Headman because Headman summons another Gravekeepers monster and is a level 3. So if you got some good Link 2s, you can do a little Link climbing, but I don't know, you normally don't spam a lot of monsters. The only one that's really important here is the Gravekeepers Supernaturalist. And that is it for the extra deck. So here's a replay to show the deck in action. We are going first against our opponent. Looking at our opening hand, it's all right, not great. The Solemns are nice to see, but we need a Floodgate or something set up. We do have Necro Valley, which is nice. A Necro Valley and Royal Tribute may be enough to stop our opponent from making a lot of good plays turn one. So we'll get into the game here. We're of course going to start with Necro Valley. We're going to set all our cards before Royal Tribute so that we don't have to show our opponent and they don't know what they are. Royal Tribute is going to knock all these Ash Blossom and 2 Tenyi Spirit Adaras out of hand. Very nice. Gives them less cards to work with, especially since they can't use these Adaras right now for the free summon. It is Sword Soul here, so they're going to play their spell card to add a Sword Soul. I'm just going to try to get rid of that right out the gate with Solemn, see if I blank their turn since I know they don't have any monsters. They top decked an Adhara though, and so they're going into Monk of the Tenyi. They're going to attack me with 1,000. That's fine. I'm going to leave Monk of the Tenyi on the field because, I want to save these for other. Now, Pot of Duality, great top deck. That's why we play it. I see Throne, I see Commandant, I see Royal Tribute. We're going to grab Throne, which is going to thin the deck even further. We're going to play Throne, grab a Spiritualist, which we can play on the field now, and attack over Monk of the Tenyi. And of course, sit on for Spiritualist. So if we get a monster next turn, we can go into our fusion. Our opponent is going to normal summon Moye. I'm going to flip the Imperial Tombs right here, just negate and stop that. Now they're going to play Sword Soul Emergence, and I'm going to play Solemn again, just completely stop them at every turn. Man, really looking for a card demise or something else here. Summon Limit is a pretty good card. That will make it so that they can't climb a lot, even if they top deck a Sword Soul monster. Again, that's why we play a 3 Summon Limit, because we want to see it. We want it in those situations. They're just going to set one card and pass. Perfectly fine with that. We have another Spiritualist here, so I'm going to play it. We're going to get 2 attacks in. Affect Veiler, not going to do them any good. Take 2,000, main phase 2. We're going to Spiritualist. Summon into our Gravekeeper Supernaturalist, which is nice, and activate his effect, so at the end phase we can search a card here. We're going to play Hidden Temple, because as soon as I play Hidden Temple, no more special summoning. Here they're going into Ecclesia, which is nice. They're going to summon it and then tribute to summon something else, but summon limit stops it right now. Now they got to sit on Strategist, which I'm just going to run over. I'm going to activate Supernaturalist effect to search a card at the end, play the Hidden Temple, so there'll be no special summoning going on. And of course, I'm going to use this effect to grab Necro Valley Throne. Our opponent is in top deck mode. War of Attrition, they just scoop and give me the win. And that's how it goes. So, that is it for my Gravekeepers deck profile. Again, just another fun deck to play and stun the opponent out. It's cool to use these iconic Gravekeepers monsters. So many of them look so cool. And classic Duel Monsters era archetype. Really good deck for getting your spell, trap, and win a duel things done. And because it does fusion, it's nice for that daily too. So I always like, having these decks that can get certain dailies done so I can pick them when I need them done. And it does its job. So, thanks for checking out the video. Love to know what you're doing with Gravekeepers. Talk about some Gravekeepers builds. Let me know what you think. I'll catch y'all in the next one.